D&D Beyond now fits in the palm of your hand with the free D&D Beyond app. It's the perfect toolset for beginners, regular players, and seasoned dungeon masters. Play faster with the guided character creator and access your character sheets, spells, and abilities wherever you go. All of your adventures and source books are at your fingertips, even when you're offline. Easily find and access the rules you need when you need them. With more features to come, download the free D&D Beyond app today.
So we now get a chance to start building out our domain. We can specify various locations. So some domains are like an entire countryside, and some domains are sort of just one front room. In our fortress, are there particular sub-locations that stand out within it, or is there a small cluster of things the Dark Lord can't get to that exists outside it? Because there are going to be regular people, whether they are sort of soulless creations of the dark powers or whether they are actual just people born into this domain, that think this is normal, that think this is just their world, right? Do they all live inside the fortress, or is there some territory outside it as well?
I think there's some territory outside of it. I think there are
Okay.
grounds. I think it's grounds. I think there's, if you wanted to get really dark, I think there's a cemetery that has the names of everybody that burned in the library, and that's kind of their station when the when that's their guard point to keep everything in and out.
Absolutely. The boundary is the edge of that, at least on one side of that cemetery. Can the Dark Lord go there or just see it from a window?
I don't think they can leave the compound. I think if they try and leave the compound, they are murdered and they wake up back inside. I think there's no getting out. Just
what we have
viewing
is a
from the
scholar
window.
who can't manage to go outside and spend some time outside. It's so relatable.
It's there you are.
So the people who think that this is normal, like what kinds of folks, like some of them probably are born into sort of service in the library, right? Staff for the library. What other kinds of folk inhabit this fortress realm?
I think the guards are clearly the a mix of the people he hired to help raid the library, and probably a list of victims going back, including I imagine their family are there as well. I think anybody who had gone down in this ends up here with the knowledge that this is almost their, I don't want to say reward because that's not quite right, but this is as close to justice as they get. Is that they are now the instrument of punishment. Even if the punishment is intentionally kind of gentle it's only violent when it needs to be. Otherwise, it's just sort of this town that how the fortresses sort of have like a little build around them. It's just this village of people who keep the library safe. That's their job. They live their lives keeping the library has to be protected.
Are there a few other locations that stand out? We've got the hallways. They probably function throughout the fortress, but there's probably a distinct section of them, right?
I think there are catacombs. Clearly, there has to be something beneath. There needs to be some catacombs. I don't know what's in them yet. That's kind of a question. There's definitely the small hamlet that surrounds the other side of it. The like hamlet and the cemetery and otherwise. Ooh.
And then maybe like the most guarded inner section of the library probably has a distinctive name.
The vault. There's probably a vault. Definitely the librarians' quarters and their offices and experimental. I'm thinking actually I'm kind of having a flash to the most recent Watchmen. Thosmandius's kind of castle where he's just sort of it's just nowhere to go, is there? It's just plotting leaving. That's all you get to. You can build shit. You're definitely building shit all the time. You're trying new things, and it's all just nope.
I love it. Maybe even occasionally putting on a play.
Oh yeah, I mean, like you could do whatever you want, and clearly you can't write the play down, but some you can dictate it to people, and you can never read it again without So this is like just anything to occupy the boredom. I imagine that there is just a non-stop series of things to try and alleviate the boredom. This is also a very good COVID year character of. Oh no. I think I'm going to take up stained glass. This will be fine. I have the room for that.
Totally. Somewhere in this fortress, there's the right hallway for that.
Just sad craft rooms. And
project rooms. That's a section of workshops. Clearly, is part of the fortress.
Some abandoned, some like abandoned and broken, just because it didn't work, and he just smashed it to death because he was upset. Centuries of
so
it.
There's a little bit sort of Red Queen Alice in Wonderland there too, where it's sort of like bring the next thing, I hate the next thing.
Yes. Oh, never ending. And I can imagine most of the people are the same kind of thing. I don't think that anybody in the village or in the castle gets angry necessarily. I think they're just, if anything, slightly delighted and more than happy to help because this is constant torment.
So if the people born here who sort of think this is all just normal, they think they just live in the world and that the guy in the fortress is in charge, what are their like fears or taboos or sort of ideas about things? What's their attitude towards books?
I think that they are
born as a random villager.
I think there are a lot of avid readers because they can go into the library anytime they like and read anything they want. The library is open.
And they might get called up at any time to be the next official reader, right? And you want to be ready.
Oh, yes.
I imagine the Dark Lord expresses displeasure if you do a poor job when you're the designated reader.
Oh, yeah. I imagine that I imagine they have the ability to sort of murder someone on the spot, and they just the next morning they're right back, perfectly fine. No, just with the vaguest memory. There's no. Especially if it's like that I think that at least that inner conclave, there's no getting rid of them. It's maybe the villagers live and die by their reality, but like any of that immediate circle of jailers they know they're not going anywhere.
So the senior staff are perpetually reborn, while the villagers sort of live and die in ordinary cycles.
I think that would be the way to do it. So the villagers would probably be the ones who get to read the books and occasionally are called upon to read and because they're a little less invested in it, and he has to be, or she, I haven't decided yet, it has to be slightly more cordial or else no one will come to read. You have to kind of be polite about it. If you keep killing people who are reading to you, then no one's going to come. You have to wait a generation for everyone to remember that's a terrible idea. And there's guards there to keep you from being too awful, I suppose. But yeah, so they know everything that's in the library. There's always there's huge chunks of the library that are just, and they love to talk about it with anybody who comes by. Happy to.
I love that. So the villagers are hyper literate.
Yes.
That's amazing. So there's one of my very favorite things in the Ravenloft setting is these NPCs like the Keepers of the Feather, which they spin out of a bunch of different stuff from Ravenloft history. But one of the things about them is that they can sort of communicate. They're one of the only people who can communicate between domains. So while most of the people in this village have no idea that there is an outside world, I imagine people are drawn there to sort of collect all of these stories from these villagers who've just mysteriously all read an entire library's contents of world knowledge.
And even though they have the world knowledge, there's just not quite the synaptic kick to go, clearly there is a world outside. It's just this information that they have. And there's nothing past the grounds, but they know they know tons about what's past the grounds. But it doesn't really, it's almost fictional.
So what's abundant is sort of fiction and information, and what's scarce, because one of the questions I love here is like, what's scarce and how do inhabitants compensate for this scarcity? So what would you say?
The experience would be extremely scarce. And I mean, God only knows what sort of food grows there or what they're capable. Perhaps deep in the catacombs, there's a what do you call it? like a centuries and just perpetually stocked with whatever is necessary to cook and just there's just food that is abundant, and that's fine. You don't
You
really
said
need to.
somewhere deep in the catacombs, there's what, a mysterious, you said pantry?
There's a pantry and a root cellar, and like there's the same way that there's just abundant materials to keep trying to escape. There's abundant food, so that the village itself is never really wanting for anything. It's a very I almost, if it weren't gloomy and dark and decrepit, it would be almost an ideal reality. But it's gloomy and dark, and it's a very gilded prison.
I love
it's an extremely gilded prison.
Let's see. That brings us, if we're ready for
Very
it,
friendly.
to monsters. As your adventurers come in here, whether the monsters are there at the behest of the Dark Lord or to attack the Dark Lord, what sort of monsters inhabit our domain of dread?
Well, the first easy one is, I think, if you start to break the rules, everybody turns on you. I think that it's almost like the charade vanishes the second that someone starts plotting to, once the Dark Lord tries to step outside the castle, or once a book leaves the castle, I just think there's a switch and everyone just turns and ferally attacks with supernatural abilities.
So a book has been stolen is like a circumstance that sets off a disaster within the domain, essentially. And you could have any kind of, like, you could have, fire raining from the sky. You could have swarms crawling out of corners. Any sort of disaster might come with that, right? Of sort of like a book has left the premises.
Oh yes, like it's just the whole. It's a prison. You can't have a prison break. And I was thinking about Hungry Books. I like the idea of a book with, like, I know that's like a mimic is kind of a classic, but like the whole notion of like things that are clearly traps, of just having a big trapped library of yeah, it's almost an inviting place as long as you don't break the rules. It's just a place of very intense rules. And
libraries have rules, man.
Oh, that's a really good one, actually. When you're in, oh, that's a great rule. When you're actually in the library, not the castle at Fortress itself, the fortress is kind of open. But if you're in the vault, there's no talking. Clearly, there's no talking in the vault. And I'm not sure if you can't talk in the vault, or if you have to take a book out of the vault to have it read, or if if you do talk, something terrible happens to you. I'm not sure.
I love that.
Yeah, I think there's no talking in the vault.
In addition, yeah, so outside the vault, you've got whispers that travel. You've got our Dark Lord being read to in some private room of their own, but inside the vault, no speech at all.
It certainly would make it harder to steal anything if you couldn't really coordinate, and if something, and like there are probably some sort of guards, I don't know what they are, but guards watching that, and God, if you got caught and attacked and murdered in there, none of your party would know if they weren't looking at you, because there would be no sound. It would just be.
Is there? And there might be rules about how many people are allowed into the vault too. It's sort of like you can apply for access, but they probably won't let your whole party go in together unless they will.
I don't know. I feel like as long as you know the rules. I think as long as you know the rules, it's open. Oh man, and better than a mimic book. I think there are just paper men and paper creatures that just slice you to ribbons, slowly bleed you out. Just so I think there are like magic. Magic scrolls that just literally just slicing damage just come in and just take you apart like a dire wolf. There's a lot of fun.
I love that. Can we have both? Can we have traps and mimics and paper monsters that slice you?
Oh, there can. I love multiple issues. Like I love any time that there's got to be like a bunch of things that can go horribly wrong.
So
and clearly there's books you need in this library. You're going to have to get them out somehow.
That's the next question: is how do you get your adventurers involved? There's a book they need inside the library. Seems like a pretty good one.
It is a pretty good one. They need to get in. They need to get something, and they can either try and learn it, or they can, if they're good and like they really charm the Dark Lord, or attempt to make a trade. Maybe they can get a read. Although even a trade would probably end with the Dark Lord turning on them and trying to keep everything. They're not really that honest,
Uh-huh.
and they're pretty. They've got a lot of. They're pretty. They covet pretty hard. I think it's trying to figure out ways of, and I think if you get a book past the domain, everything goes back. I think it's very Sleepy Hollow. Once you're out of the domain, you're fine. But
That's
you got to cross the
fantastic.
river.
So that is in that sense, because one option that you have, and I love the guidance in here on that, is if you want to build towards a climax, if you're running an adventure in this world and there's a key to the destruction, is it getting a book out? Because killing the Dark Lord is too easy, right? They'll just come back. So how do you defeat this Dark Lord?
I think that Dark Lord is just such a prison. Oh, like defeat them with like. I mean,
It's an option. You can basically just have them be something like the defeat is just getting out of here, or you can have
I
an
think
option to, if you want, to be like this could destroy the whole realm, or fundamentally change their torment in some way, or a different Dark Lord could arise. If you were building an adventure in this world, how would you shape that story?
I think you either cheat the Dark Lord somehow. Like I think there are games you can play, and you either figure out a way to outmaneuver them. They think they're getting something, or they don't. And you like anytime you can get out of the deal, get something out of the deal, and they don't get anything out of the deal. I imagine that is rough. Uh, I imagine that would send them into the sort of fit that would require them to be put down by the guards to wake up the next day. Just, oh, this day is over. You're
I
done.
love that. So
Uh,
that actually, one more thing that might tie in nicely to is that the Dark Lord of each domain has an option to close down the mists. Um, so people can travel with some limitations between realms, unless the Dark Lord has closed the mists. And obviously, the Dark Lord themselves can never get out. But what does it look like in this realm when the Dark Lord closes down the mists? Is there a special feature to them? Does it happen with a certain frequency, or is that the sort of like these stay closed unless you get a book out?
I think that. I mean, on a certain level, I feel like you can't always get in, but you can always get out.
Okay.
It's one of those places where people can like that's part of the torture is people can leave because getting people to leave is definitely frustrating. Um,
So it's actually very hard for this Dark Lord to close down the mists, and that probably whether
once all the
they don't
yeah,
understand what the mists are, but they know that they hate that.
if there are no strangers in the realm, they can close down the mists. But if they close down the mists, no new books can come in. So it's always if you get out, it's probably going to be closed for a while. There's probably no getting back in once you're out.
Hmm.
For like that might be the minute they can crush that, then like the mists vanish and it's just whatever ruins of that. All you see are the ruins of that castle and the ruins of that village, hundreds of years, or in utter they're abandoned. It's only
The
when the
smoking wreck,
mists
well, long since not smoking, but mm,
yeah, just long gone, and it's only when the mists come that you can actually go to the real place and see the real thing. Yeah, I think that there's always got to be it's the Sleepy Hollow vibe where the chase is part of the torture. Like even making it very difficult is it keeps it from being everything needs to be difficult. It's just sort of so that
all right.
maybe a book doesn't leave, but it might.
Our Dark Lord themselves. Let's start pinning down. Do we have a name?
Oh man. Ooh, um I'm looking at my bookshelf for a good name. No,
Always a
that's
good
too
call.
obvious. Yeah, when in doubt, find a 19th century book and steal a name. No. Um Ooh, no, I've used that one before. Do you ever look at a bookshelf and like, oh man, I already used that one?
I've done it.
Um,
Yeah.
just here. Um, Oh,
You've
I'm
got some
trying to remember.
wonderful.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a good librarian names. Is it do we have do we have a notion of gender? I kind of like the idea of a woman. I
Sure.
find that kind of pleasing. Just
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 as a plug, I
because.
love that there are a ton of Lady Dark Lords in Ravenloft, which I thought was
Yes.
super cool. Um, mm,
I like I also think it gives you a lot of meat to play with since yeah, I like the idea of just sort of this corrupted version of you. Um, ooh, oh. Um, S- Snart is always a great last name. I was just
I
trying to think of
mean,
something awful. Snart.
it's Leonard Snart et al.
Yeah,
But it's a
that's a
good
good. I
name.
was wondering where that came from. Uh, uh, what's and then something regal for the first name, just like so that to like really give it like somebody who you could believe if you hear their first name that they are royalty, but then you hear their last name and clearly there's clearly
So we've
something
got like a
was
social
taken.
climber angle there.
Oh,
So I
very much.
mean,
I mean,
there's the
clearly.
classics. Regina and Victoria, both obviously candidate
Ooh,
names there.
Victoria Snart. Ooh, that's Dickensian. I like that.
It is a bit, isn't
Victorian.
it?
That's like Olive Snook. It's just a great uh it's a great turn to it. It's my favorite Pushing Daisy's character is Olive Snook. Uh,
But not
yeah.
evil.
No, musical. In fact, she's fabulous.
Indeed.
I love a good very
So
like Dickens names are the best.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Victoria Snart is our spy master, librarian, dark lord of this realm. What
Ooh.
is the realm called? This domain?
Ooh. It is called.
And sometimes they can be proper names or they can be descriptions.
I think perhaps it's just a city name. I like the idea of
Hmm.
just a city name of just like Vandermeer, something that's not
I love
necessarily
it.
descript, but at the same time, the town of Vandermeer
And that was probably
holds
the
the
real
private
town
collection.
that she yeah, the Library of Vandermeer was famous throughout its
Mm.
realm. Um and now is all that exists of Victoria Snart's
Yeah, it was a
original
library. No, it was
slash.
a collection that no one had ever been into, and
Mhm.
very few still have. It is still very
So
difficult to get in.
in life, she probably one of the steps that she took was probably finding the location of that and then tracking it down and then making it her home base and then eventually burning it to the ground.
Oh, I
Right?
mean, clearly got the land through corruption and through blackmail, and then built it through corruption and blackmail, and then yeah, this is everything she owns. She I don't want to everything she owned. She got through coercion of just secrets and knowledge. It was a hand of the king, just knowing exactly what everyone was doing and knowing how to make it pay very well.
So what's
Um,
one family member that she betrayed who is perpetually among her staff in this domain of dread? Brother,
I think
parent,
a little sister
child.
is always fun. I think several friends, a little sister. I think an extended. I think honestly, probably a very extended family because from parents, grandparents, uh, probably. I mean, like if I were her, I would have just murdered everybody I've ever dated at that point. Like I would have gone back and just taken anybody who might know anything and just flushed them in the memory hole.
And they knew too much, right? So that
They all. I
graveyard is
mean,
full of their names.
it's just it's a it was probably a relatively it was it's very Macbeth. You got to kill the kids too. Can't have them coming back in 20 years. Like just
Macbeth,
gotta.
Kill
Oh, I have a
Bill.
best
It's just
friend. He knows too much.
yep.
Yeah, gotta get rid of that. That's not
Now
helpful.
is she human or something else?
I feel like I feel like Elf is just too easy. I think human is just such a great rate.
Plus, thirst for knowledge out of our control is very human.
Yeah, and I like a shorter lifespan. There's something about a shorter
Mhm.
lifespan that really makes the need for power all that more all that more
And the urgency of like, I only have so long to
urgent.
find Vandermeer and build this. Yeah.
And build
So
build this and eventually.
does she have a monstrous transformation other than maybe just like her fire touch form?
I had a moment where I thought that the tail of what she had done was tattooed, and like the entire tail was tattooed upon her skin, her paper, her not even paper. What is that stuff that's more leathery than paper?
Parchment?
Parchment. Thank you. I think her skin has gone to parchment, and it is covered in the entire story of why she is there. It's probably the only thing she can read without it coming burning down in a mirror.
Oh my gosh.
That'd be fun.
That's wonderful.
So
So does
fucked
she
up.
does she dress in a way to conceal that or to deliberately reveal it or to partially like you think you can make out some words but she's bundled up or how does she usually
I
I'm
don't
just
know.
curious now.
I mean, like, I mean, I feel
I
like
feel like
anybody
she's
like
got
that.
moods.
Yeah, I think there are God, do you remember you've seen Return to Oz, right?
Mhm.
You remember the head closet? I keep thinking about I'm going to put on my happy face. um, I think that, I mean, like, I feel like anyone who's that conservative in knowledge would want to bundle up a lot anyway. Like, it would be a lot of like very, but
Vestments kind of deal.
yeah, I don't know. I'd be open. Like, would there be makeup? Would there be like an attempt to like make themselves look normal?
Ah, put on a regular face
Glove.
so that you're not seeing the words.
Yeah, it's just kind of shine the right light. They just kind of, and if they start to sweat, that the terrible shit they would put on their face in like the 17th century is just starts sweating down there. As the words slowly get revealed.
Well, and that could be another form of torment that's in the domain is that because they were a scholar and spent a bunch of time with what could have been, inks that were dangerous to breathe, there could be sort of poison gases in here and something that she uses to cover up the sort of tools of her trade or her
Oh
spy mastery that are become their own sources of danger inside the
God,
realm.
I was just watching a YouTube video about old forms of ink and how some of them were like actually like really bad for you. God, I'll have to look that up again. Yeah, that'd be great if just like all the liquids that it excrete from her are just all poisonous and bad for you and cause madness. Like, can't really like just everything is toxic. Her breath is toxic. Her sweat is toxic. It's just nightshade sweat and inky spittle.
I
So
love
there's always
this
like a
so
blackened
much.
tongue from the. Oh, this is so gross. Oh, I love
So
it.
the toxic library fortress of Vandermeer, this domain of dread, is someplace
Mm.
I would love to travel. I have
This is
kept you
fun.
a little longer than I meant to because this is so much fun. But this is just chapter
Mm.
2 of Van Rechten's Guide to Ravenloft, which you can get a hold of right now to start exploring 30 domains of dread to make your own using these tools, or to see if you can defeat Victoria Snart of Vandermeer in your own adventures. I'm just saying, no one can stop you with D&D. And I want to say, first of all, finally, just a big thank you so much, Taliesin
I
Jaffe, for
miss
joining us
this. Are you
today.
kidding? I miss this so much. I miss you. So
This has been a delight. I miss you, obviously, but thrilled to have you here.
oh, so
Thank you
happy to
all
be
for
here.
watching. And we will see you. Oh, well, where can the people find you, Taliesin, if they would like some more?
If you would like some more, you can find me on Critical Role every Thursday, and always doing stuff with at Critical Role Twitch, on Twitter on occasion, and otherwise. So they can follow me at Executive Goth everywhere where at Executive Goth is available, Twitter and Instagram, etc., etc.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me, for bringing your incredible, insightful mind filled with horrors. That's a
That was
compliment.
fun. That was
And we will
fun.
see you
Woo.
next time on D&D Beyond.
D&D Beyond now fits in the palm of your hand with the free D&D Beyond app. It's the perfect toolset for beginners, regular players, and seasoned dungeon masters. Play faster with the guided character creator and access your character sheets, spells, and abilities wherever you go. All of your adventures and source books are at your fingertips, even when you're offline. Easily find and access the rules you need when you need them. With more features to come, download the free D&D Beyond app today.